Sorcerers, known as the Barasha, began a war with the Monarchy of Carandir to seize a magical crown and release their master, the evil dragon Baras. Traitorous nobles sided with the Barasha. One of these was Baron Wom. Peoples with dark skin from the equatorial nation of Hura came to aid Carandir. Some asked to stay. One of these was Marawee Bedquanga. Along with his wife Umera and their infant daughter Keetala, they started a vineyard. Their neighbor Len Gento helped the Bedquangas. Keetala and Len's son Hebra fell in love and married. She gave birth to a daughter named Marshala. 18 years have passed. Baron Wom returns from exile. Those members of the Keetala militia devoted to Wom struck at Darknail. They killed the rightful Baron, then turned on his court and those militia members who were loyal to the crown. Wom arrived and inspected the bodies being piled in the stronghold's courtyard. He nodded his head, went to the audience hall, and sat in the high chair he had once occupied. His senior officers accompanied him. He cast his gaze among the men. "A new order rises. The weak will be crushed. Only the strong will survive to build a Carandir that will regain its place in the world. The foreigners who suck upon the teat of our nation will be cast out, along with the new nobility, the usurping shopkeepers. Only pure Carandirians will live among us. Our race will expunge the filth. Form bands of men loyal to our cause. They are authorized to take any action necessary. I must send Terex to Baroness Luja and Baron Gillian. We now control Patella, Eel, and Shannon, but there are many in the other western baronies who share our visions, and wait for signs of war." In the early hours of morning, gangs of men with torches, clubs, swords, and knives broke down the doors of shops owned by those deemed contaminated by parentage, origin, or beliefs. The owners and their families, who often lived above the businesses, were driven into the streets. Homes were invaded and torched. Many were beaten and killed where the official militia stood by. People fled to the countryside, the hills, the forest, anywhere out of the melee. Marawee woke to someone pounding on his door. He opened it to find his son-in-law's father, Len Gento, with a lantern in his hand. Len stared down the road, then turned to Marawee. "Quickly, gather your belongings. Hebra is bringing a wagon with Keetala and the baby." The light from the lantern reflected off Marawee's dark skin. "What's wrong?" "Villagers from outside are raiding the homes of everyone not born in the barony." "Doesn't the militia stop them?" "They stand and watch. One declared that Wom is baron again, and has ordered the expulsion of all Easterners and foreigners. Hurry, they will be here in moments." Marawee spread his hands to indicate his property. "This is our home, our land given to us by the crown. Wom is in revolt against the crown." A mob ran up the street carrying torches, pitchforks, and scythes. "Get out!" cried voices. "The maggots!" They reached the doorstep. One of Marawee's neighbors, a man whose barn he had helped to rebuild after a storm, said, "By order of Baron Wom, the lands and properties of all Easterners and foreigners are confiscated. You must leave at once." Marawee looked around to the faces of the men he had worked beside and drank with at the tavern. "What are you saying, Entar? We have all shared a life here. Many of us fought the Barasha together. Why do you come to my house with threats?" Another said, "This land is of Carandirians." Marawee took a step forward. "I am Carandirian. I swore an oath to this monarchy. I chose to be here. Or you can choose to leave now quietly or be burned out." Umera joined her husband. "You have no right to do this." A man in the back of the mob shouted, "Silence! Women have no voice in this barony. Men will decide who has rights and you have none." Marawee stood tall. "My wife and all of the women have the same rights as any man. What are you saying? There are only 12 of you. Where are the rest of the villagers? You did not speak for them." Entar held his torch like a mace. "They stay in their homes and let those with the courage to act cleanse the land of scum. They know their duty to the Baron and the consequences of those who speak out against him." A voice came from behind Lentar. "Len, you and your son can stay. We have no quarrel with you for befriending this immigrant. You are true Carandirians. But Hebra's black wife and that abomination she bore must leave." Entar looked behind him with a scowl, then turned to Marawee while averting his eyes. "Because you have been a good man, we will allow you to take a wagon with your personal belongings and any coins you have, but your lands are forfeit to Baron Wom. Head east and find passage back to Hura, where you came from. Return to your own kind." Marawee slowly shook his head. "I fought the Sorcerers and freed all of you. I can still fight." "Tell him, Len. Tell him that the militia are just down the road with a bigger mob. Tell him to get out. We can hold them back for a span no more. Tell him." Entar turned and led the mob away. Marawee stared after them with his fists clenched. Umera stepped out on the road. "What are we going to do?" "I don't know. I can't believe this. We've lived with these people for nearly 2 decades. Everyone welcomed us. We laughed and ate together. How could this be happening?" Len said, "We must leave, all of us. We are family. I have already decided to leave. Hebra and Keetala will have finished loading our belongings and will be here any moment. We must travel east, or they will kill you. I will stand with you, and they will kill me." Hebra pulled a long wagon up to the house. 2 lanterns were attached to the front. Keetala sat beside her husband on the driver's bench with Marshala in her arms. When the wagon stopped, Keetala handed Marshala to Hebra, jumped down and ran to her father. She wrapped her arms around him. "They surrounded the house and said they were going to burn us out." Marawee hugged her tightly. Umera said, "I don't understand why everyone has turned against us. The world has gone mad." Keetala sobbed. "They called Marshala the most horrible names." Hebra held tightly to his daughter. "I looked back and saw people looting the house as we drove off. People I know." He closed his eyes and shook his head. "We can't stop to think about that now," said Len. "Quickly, take everything you can fit in the wagon." They loaded clothes, coins, lanterns, food, and Marawee's sword from the war. 8 tespans later they were riding quickly down a road leading east. It took over a span for them to reach the foothills of the mountain range and leave the vineyards behind. Marawee looked back for a final glance at the home he had lived in, where his daughter had grown up, where his granddaughter had been born, where he had known the greatest joy. Then they entered the trees of the forest, and the valley was cut off from sight. The road rose steeply. There were many switchbacks. Hebra slowed the horse to navigate a road that sometimes became so narrow there was just enough space to keep the sides of the wagon from brushing against trees. Keetala crawled into the wagon bed and slept with her daughter in her arms. Len fell asleep next to Umera. Marawee took the reins from Hebra, who stretched his legs. The young man said, "I've never been out of the valley. Do you know how far Meth is?" Marawee urged the horse forward. "Many long weeks' travel. I'm not even certain this road reaches the city. We will take it as far as possible. Hopefully it leads to a barony that is still loaded with crown." They continued in silence. After a while Hebra said, "Do you think we've gone far enough to make camp safely?" "I'd like to get a little further away. Dawn will come soon, and we should find a place to hide. I don't know how far Wom's power reaches." "He joined the Barasha, didn't he?" Marawee turned his head toward the young man. "Yes." "Was it terrible, this war?" The former soldier looked back to the road. "All wars are terrible. Some are necessary. Neither of us would be here if the Barasha had won. Baras would have destroyed everything." "Do you mind talking about it?" "There's not much to say. I spent most of my time marching behind our prince, Udala. He is a great leader in my homeland. We all loved him. When we were not marching, we were waiting. The battle was quick. None of us would be ashamed to say that we experienced terror. Many did not return from that field. Many friends. All of us pledged our lives to defeat the Barasha. It was necessary, but there was no glory. Only fools find glory in war." "Have you taken up arms since?" Marawee gave a short laugh. "You are a man of many questions, Hebra." "I'm sorry. I'll be quiet." "Don't be. It is because people in our village were quiet tonight that we are here. I don't know if it was from fear or a deep-rooted hatred of those who are different that they have hidden all these years. I feel ashamed for the hatred. It is not your fault. You are my son as much as you are Len's." "I feel ashamed because I think I understand. My father once told me about talk of pure Carandirians long before the Barasha arrived. The strange thing is, all Carandirians are immigrants. Our ancestors came from the North Continent as explorers, and were given the land by the Loren as a gift to Avar the Great for subduing Baras." "I didn't know that. Where did the Loren go?" "No one knows for certain. Some believe they went west and settled by the great ocean. The ship I sailed on from Hura passed the western coast. I saw no sign of settlements." They are a mysterious people, or so it is said. One of the original tribes taught by the dragons before Baras turned to evil. The Lorraine might have concealed themselves. Perhaps. As the sun rose, Marawee urged the horse off the main road and into a gap in the trees. Everyone was bounced around as the wagon moved over rough terrain. When they were concealed from the road, Marawee brought the wagon to a stop. Len got down and stretched his legs. "This is hard on old bones. We should reach a summit soon. Do you think it's safe to travel by day?" Umera said, "Perhaps we should rest here and travel by dark tomorrow night. We can see where that takes us. Do you have any idea where we are?" Len shook his head. "Not really. I've traveled the main roads to sell wine, but these secondary paths sometimes run at a crisscross over the mountains. It could even take us to a dead end." "We have no choice," said Hebra. "We'll just have to trust that we'll reach safety." Keetala walked around with Marshala in her arms and tried to comfort the baby who was crying. "Where will we go, father?" Marawee said, "Wome's reach can't extend beyond Patala. I don't know how he intends to stay in power. The Crown and the other baronies will send troops to quell the rebellion. The road we're on runs more north than east. I'm not certain if we'll reach Len or Tessar. Either way, we have to notify the authorities quickly. They can send Terex to the palace to alert the army." Umera placed her hand gently on Marawee's arm. "Will you go to war again?" He looked into her eyes. "We will all do what we must. I am no longer young. The militia of whatever barony we reach will protect us. They and the Carandir army will launch an attack against the traitor. They won't want an old man in their way."